In 2018, on the Emirates flight EK203, a passenger coughs. What should be an innocent and all too common incident on a plane, unfortunately doesn't end there. 15 hours later, the plane lands in New York, but the passengers are not allowed to leave. Ambulances and police cars quickly surround the plane. The plane is now under quarantine. The famous American rapper Vanilla Ice is also on this plane.
Ice, ice, baby.
He records a video from the upper deck of this double-decker plane from Dubai and publishes it on Twitter.
What's happening out there?
Well, someone's sick on the plane. A couple people got ill on the plane, and it must be pretty serious.
A few minutes later, he makes another tweet. Over 100 people are sick on the bottom deck of this plane. Fears of a new, incredibly infectious disease spread online and drew the attention of different news stations to the scene. Coughing, sneezing, fever, and vomiting. These were the symptoms that, in the duration of the flight, spread from passenger to passenger. When even some of the crew members started to feel these symptoms, the pilot notified the airport ground staff, and in turn, the authorities were notified. Officials from the US Center of Disease Control also arrived to the scene, and the passengers started to get off the plane for testing. Everyone was worried, but after the evaluation of the entire plane, only 11 of the passengers were sent to the hospital. The quarantine was lifted, and everyone else was told that they were free to go. The 11 people who were sent to the hospital, they had only contracted the common cold before boarding the plane. Wait, but how is this possible? Did more than 100 people just fake being ill? Well, it's a bit more complicated than that. It's very likely that all the symptoms that the passengers experienced were real symptoms. It's just that these symptoms weren't caused by a virus or a bacteria, they were caused by a mass psychogenic illness, also known as mass hysteria. The passengers experienced real symptoms simply because they believed that there was an infectious virus on the plane. The effects of mass hysteria can oftentimes seem extremely bizarre, and by no means are they just a modern phenomena. Take for example the case of the dancing plague, a case of mass hysteria that took place several different times in the Middle Ages, in which one by one people would start to dance for no discernible reason, and once they started, there was nothing that could stop them. In one of these cases that took place in the city of Strasbourg in the year 1518, it's reported that 15 of the more than 400 people who were inflicted with this condition danced until they literally had a heart attack and dropped dead. Another less fatal but equally bizarre case of mass hysteria involved a group of French nuns, when one of them suddenly meowed like a cat. Another one followed suit with a meow back. Eventually, the entire convent became an orchestra of meowing nuns who couldn't stop meowing until a regiment of soldiers were sent to physically beat them. But what could be the reason behind this mass psychosis? Let's come back again to the 21st century and take a look at more recent cases. In 2006, an outbreak of unusual symptoms took place in a Catholic boarding school in Mexico City. The 500 pupils who were afflicted suffered from fever and nausea. They had difficulty walking, and some of them even became partially paralyzed. When the students were examined and interviewed, it came to light that their symptoms were brought about psychologically. In the same year, across the Atlantic in Portugal, at least 300 students from 14 different schools reportedly suffered from rashes, difficulty breathing, and dizziness, which forced some schools to temporarily close. But later, the emergency was dismissed as mass hysteria caused by the airing of a popular TV show for teenagers, which had an episode where a life-threatening virus affected the school depicted in the show. What seems to connect all these cases together is a hyperacute sense of anxiety. It seems that mass hysteria inflicts those groups that are under a lot of stress. The more severe the stress, the worse the symptoms. Most of the students from that boarding school in Mexico City had come from poverty. When the ones who suffered from partial paralysis were interviewed, it was discovered that they suffered from psychological traumas from their childhood. And the nuns who started to meow like cats, well, a life of celibacy, a diet that left you starving, rigorous work and severe punishment for breaking rules, and also the fact that such a lifestyle might have been chosen for you by someone else, are just some of the reasons why a socially isolated convent might be a highly stressful environment ripe for mass hysteria.